in one of his research notes, and he mentioned the concepts of the survival of the fittest. Now, for a lot of people, they think that survival of the fittest simply means the strongest will survive. No, that's not really the survival of the fittest. The concept of the survival of the fittest is actually a learning and development concept. And what does that mean? A creature in a certain evolutionary time must learn certain skills, abilities, and knowledge to survive that phase, such that when it gives birth to new offsprings, everything that creature has learned is passed through DNA to the offspring. And then they find it easy to survive that phase. That is the concept of the survival of the fittest, which is why the babies that were born during 2020 into now, those babies at 8 months know how to operate mobile phones. Have you noticed that? That's survival of the fittest at work. Because we as parents we are living in the 21st century, and we are living in the information age. I feel we're now in the data age, right? And now we've understood that the ability to use technology is what will make us survive. So we've learned skills, we've built it, it has grown into our DNA, such that the babies born from that COVID period or early 2018 up until now can easily use mobile phones. And you check it, all the kids today from 3 downwards, give them an iPad, they can figure it out. Give them a mobile phone, they can figure it out. They even know a real mobile phone from the bad one. Why? Because you as the parent have learned certain skills, and then you've passed those genes down to your kids so that they can survive. And that's the concept of survival of the fittest. And you see that learning and development is beyond, let me do a training for you. And we're still going to have a session where we're going to break down in detail the difference between learning and development and training management, because they're two different things. If you're on the call and you are a trainer and you're trying to move into L&D, there is a totally different mindset you need to have. All right, now that I've sort of laid down, my goal is to do this in 45 minutes, right? That's the goal I'm setting for myself, but we'll see where this takes us. And the reason why I'm saying so is that every session like this is going to be collated and placed in a learning management system, an LMS, where you can have access. So I'm very keen on not just putting in a Google Drive, because links can be corrupted. But if there's a learning management system, people can log in, watch what they want to watch, and then move out, right? If I have support, we may break down the whole 1 hour session into chunks of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, so that it's easier for us to also consume. I'm an L&D person, so I understand that anything beyond 10 minutes, and I have a couple of my colleagues on the call that work with me at work. You know, I'm very big on nothing you're building, no modules lesson must be higher than 10 minutes. If it's higher than 10 minutes, break it into 2. Because the mind at this stage of our lives, especially for adults, cannot, if it's going to go beyond 10 minutes, it has to be a movie or something different, right? But so we're going to put all our sessions into a learning management system as it is first, and then as help comes, the community will build itself. We'll build our portals, we'll build all those things ourselves. So it's not just for young gains, it's for everybody in the industry, L&D leaders, corporate training experts with 20 years experience. As long as you are doing L&D, please share so that they can join, right? Now, this is where a lot of us, maybe not on the call, and could be on the call, this is where a lot of people are. They are standing at the maze of their career and they are wondering, where do I start? I've done training for 20 years. Now I am applying for an L&D role and I can't even make an interview slot. Why? Do my experience not matter? Some others are, I want to begin the career. They say I need experience, but the job I need to get the experience, I'm not getting it because I don't have the experience, right? For many others, they're like, I've been doing this for a while now, but I just feel stuck. Like there's nothing I've tried to do a lot of things. I can't just get out of this state. My goal in this session is to share 3 things that have helped build my own career. And I believe that if you stay true to them, they will build your own career. Uh, I'm going to share my story in those 3 instances, and we'll be able to connect the dots once we get to the front. We'll connect it backwards because understanding comes in retrospect, right? Now, why listen to me? This is a question I've been asking myself in the last 2 weeks. Why should people listen to me? What makes me special? Um, and the truth is, I'm not really doing what I'm doing to show off my experience. Yes, I have close to decade experience. I have cognate experience, 7 years working on jobs, and then I've had like another 4 years before I even entered corporate Nigeria. Before I served, just holding training sessions here and doing all of that. But the reason why I'm doing this and why I think you should listen to me is I care really about making learning and development make sense to you. And if you're in this community, this is why I'm doing this. I really care about I care about simplifying it. It's not really as vague and as big. Well, it is, but it's not as vague as people think it is. L&D is one career path that they don't teach you in school. You can't go to school to study it. You either go to school to study education, and they are trained to be like teachers, not as L&D experts that can scale organizations. And when I say scale organizations, I'm not even saying just businesses. NGOs need L&D experts, especially L&D experts, to scale, because primarily a large chunk of what they do is centered around education and program management. Organizations need L&D to make money. There's no joke about that. The best products are created in the right processes. The right processes are managed by competent people. So if you have incompetent people managing the right process, you will deliver terrible results and terrible products. So product is directly proportional to people, to the people creating them, right? And I think you should also listen to me because, like it or not, I know what it feels like to be stuck, confused, and unsure of oneself. I've been around the block, I've faced challenges, and my goal is to share the real deal about L&D without all the fancy talk. I can guarantee you that if you stay in this community and you're committed to it, you would see change in the next 6 months. I can guarantee you that. I also believe that if you pay attention to the things I say today and you practice it, you would also see change in the next 6 months. I've played in L&D long enough to know that change do not happen tomorrow. Change do not happen in 3 months. You need at least 6 months. If it happens under 6 months, there's a big chance that Lady Luck favored you. But anything you're doing in 6 months, even when you build programs for, maybe you're an organization, you build programs, you have to give them three months to even come back, 3 months after the program to come back and ask how far. That's the first alpha. And then you come back 6 months later to now check again if impact has actually happened. Right? So that, yeah. Now, all I've been doing is introduction. So before we delve fully into concepts, what do you think learning and development is? This is an icebreaker. What do you think learning and development is? You can unmute to speak. Primarily, I think you can just drop chats if you're not comfortable speaking. I think you can drop chats. My structured mind would have shared like a list of rules before we began the session. I mean, we all know how this works, right? But it's fine. Let's just flow. What do you think L&D is? What do you think L&D is? There's something I say in all my classes. and sessions. There's no right or wrong answer. So neuro-linguistic programming has taught me that nobody is really right or wrong. People are only right dependent on the information available to them that supersedes what they think is right. So they are only better answers. They are not really right or wrong answers. They are only better answers, right? So please share what you think learning and development is. Like, nobody wants to say anything. Come on, guys.
Hello.
Yes. Thank you, Abiodun. You
All
can
right.
speak.
Thank you so much for this time. God bless you. All right. So for me, I just think learning and development is creating a pathway that helps people know something they don't know before to advance what they do in an organization. That's what I think.
Interesting. Thank you. That makes sense. That really makes sense.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Abiodun. Aisha says improving performance through learning, but also knowing when the solution to improving performance is in learning. Okay, yeah, a bit. Who else wants to try? Thank you, Aisha, for sharing. Um,
I'll just say it's more of empowering employees or people with a medium to develop their skills and knowledge to get
yeah,
better at themselves, both for the purpose of the business and for their own personal growth. So yeah.
correct. We're all saying what L&D is actually, which makes sense. I like that we're aligned. I just want to say is I believe learning and development is the ability to deliver information which impacts an individual to gain knowledge and drive change, which eventually leads to growth, development within an individual or an organization. Awesome. Yomi says learning and development is a function within an organization that is responsible for empowering employee growth and developing their knowledge, skills, and capabilities to drive better business performances. Amazing. We are all right. So there are certain keywords that must show up in, and I use the word must because it shapes the way you now think about it. One of it is function. So learning and development is a function. Yeah, it may be a department or a role in an organization, but in the real sense, it is a function. And because it's a function, it must be within a context. So it could be within an organization. It could be within an individual, really. But learning and development is a function that so it's a function within. I'm very careful to use the word organization and individuals. So let me make it simple. Have the understanding that it's a function, but this is a simple definition that can work for you all the time. Learning and development is creating initiatives and activities that allow people gain new skill, knowledge, and abilities to change to God, I'm trying not to give us textbook definitions, right? But learning and development is simply creating initiatives or activities that can allow people learn new skills, knowledge, and abilities. I think we should keep it at that. That's what learning and development is. Three keywords: skills, knowledge, and ability. I call it the ACTS methodology. Abilities is A. Sometimes you can substitute abilities with attitude. So abilities and attitude is the first aspect of what learning and development should solve. S is skills. K is knowledge. So for easy remembrance, you can also call it the ASK methodology. ASK. So learning and development is really about doing anything and everything to help people develop abilities, skills, and knowledge. In the most basic form, that's what L&D is. Now, L&D works within the function of an organization, which means that in an organization, L&D can help various aspects of that organization develop what? Attitude / abilities, skills, and knowledge, so that they can all go on to do better things, go on to create better products. And this is useful across anything. You run a church and you have a team that works with you. Always ask yourself, what are the attitudinal or abilities gap they have? What are the skill gaps they have? What are the knowledge gaps they have? Let me use a very simple example. So somebody knows how to sing. As an L&D expert, if the person comes, if the manager of the person comes and says, this guy, I don't think this guy is competent for the job, right? You don't just jump to saying, oh, let's do a training. No. Your job as an L&D professional is to figure out where this individual is lacking. If he's not showing up on stage to sing properly, is it because he has an attitude problem? Is it because he lacks the skill to sing on stage? Or is it because he lacks the knowledge to do it? Now, in your analysis as an L&D person, you can figure out that, oh, this guy has stage fright. So if this guy has stage fright, the problem is not that he doesn't know how to sing. Neither is the problem that he has a terrible attitude. The problem is that he doesn't have the skill of public speaking, in quotes, because public speaking is not just talking. You could also sing. You need methodologies of public speaking to, maybe not public speaking, let's not call it public speaking. He needs to learn the skill of stage management as an artist. So you can immediately tell that, okay, this guy's problem is stage management. So how can we help him learn stage management? Do we give him a manual? Do we allow him watch videos? Do we do a practical session where he's on the stage and he's singing and we are telling him what to do? That's how you think as an L&D professional. So a business, as a consultant, for instance, as a training consultant, business owner comes to you and say, my people are not doing customer service well. Don't just say, I have a customer service training. Nah. Sit there, because I'm giving you the secret to how I charge more for my sessions. Sit with them and say, okay, can you walk me through the process of what your customer service structure is like? By the time you are done with analysis alone, the person will feel like, this guy, go cut my neck with him bill like this. But what you've done in 5, 10, 15 minutes is that you've helped him to see that the problem is beyond training. So he can retain you beyond training. But if all you tell him is, let's do a training, then all you will only do for him is a training. Remember, it is a function. For every client, there is a lifespan of how long you can spend with the client. So today may be training, tomorrow it may be manuals, next tomorrow it may be training materials. But you need to be able to project to him that you know beyond just training and that you can properly help his team develop into the talents that they should become. Does this make sense? Am I making sense, guys? If I am, please, you can use the reaction buttons, please. Thank you. Man, we've just been doing icebreaker. God, I'm used to all this training. Let me run. All right, let me run. Now, what are the keys for your career growth as an L&D professional or as training professionals trying to become L&D professionals? There are 3 major things you must know. They are non-negotiable. If you don't know them, you will really struggle. The first thing is what I call the need / gap analysis. I doubt if you work with me on any project, you won't hear me scream gap analysis 100 times a day. Maybe not 100 times, I'm overreacting, but because that's the very first skill. And I don't even call this skill, I call this competencies. So there are 3 competencies you must have. The first one is the need/gap analysis. You need to be able to sit in front of a manager, in front of a business owner, in front of anybody that needs your services, and assess and analyze where the gap is. If you cannot do this, everything you would refer to that client as a service will be some form of training. And when I mean training, some form of instructor-led training like this. Because without analysis, you would be treating the symptoms and not the problem. Because, like the example of the guy that sings, if you cannot analyze properly to know that what he has is stage fright, you may think he just has a bad attitude. Or you may think that this guy no just serious, guy. Everything they do, I mean, they feel himself. But your ability to analyze gaps or analyze, because for everything you do, you have to define why you need to take the step that you are taking. A growing L&D professional is not afraid of justifying every process he puts in place to achieve a goal. If you say we need to have this portal, we need to have this tool, we need to do this, if you have done your analysis well, you can justify why the organization needs to spend on those things. One of the things that I have enjoyed in my place of work, and I'm speaking this because I'm also an operator. I'm not a thought leader that read on YouTube and is coming to talk. No. I heard learning and development for possibly the biggest fintech at the moment out of Africa. But the second fastest growing company, not just fintech, out of Africa. We are everywhere in the country, like everywhere. There's nowhere you go, you don't see us. We have a staff strength, internal workforce of over 1,000. Then we have an external workforce, a partnership network of tens of thousands. And I lead a team of 5 in-house staff and 69, as of the last time I checked, remote staff that deliver learning and development initiatives to those guys. So I'm not sharing what I am not doing or what is not working. So if you do not understand, if 30 managers come to you and say we need training, and all you do is training for them, you will just realize that at a point they will feel like this guy doesn't even know what he's doing, because all the things you are giving us to do does not work or do not work. So you need to be able to analyze problems. It's such a big deal. If you cannot analyze problems as a learning and development professional or as a training professional, you will struggle, because then all you would give to the client or the person that sits in front of you is training. Whereas what the customer needs at that moment may not be training, but may be a reference material. And then if they get it right with the reference material and it works, they can say, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. And then you can prescribe something else, which could be a training. And then you could prescribe some form of either mentorship plan or coaching plan. But you are sustaining the life cycle of that customer because of your analysis skill. Because they know every time I come to this person, they will figure out a solution. The second thing you need to have as a learning and development / training professional is what we popularly call instructional design. So there's instructional design, there's learning design. Instructional design is building your program from the instructor's perspective. That means the subject matter expert's perspective. Learning design is building your program from the learner's perspective. The truth is, They are both the same. It just depends on what perspective you choose to work from. And there are various models out there. There's RD, there is GAP, and see, there's a lot, right? But there is specifically two that works for adult education. They are called Gagne's 9 levels of instruction or Merrill's first principle of instruction. So Dr. Merrill's took Gagne's 9 levels of instruction and shrunk it into 5 things. But the whole idea with instructional design is how can I structure every instruction in my training program such that at each phase I can measure the development of the people going through it. So I like to use food as an example when I'm teaching instructional design. Let's say you want to teach somebody how to make noodles. The very first thing you need to do is not to say spicy noodles recipe and call that the name of the program. No. You have to define the title of the program. I'm already teaching ID, but let me say it. You have to define the title of the program as a solution to the problem that the learners are going through, because that's how they identify with the program. So if somebody has problem with writing emails, don't go and say communication course for email writing. That's vague. You need to name it like a solution to the program. That's the very first step. So instead of calling it communication for email writing, call it how to write and send emails that people would always read. People will sign up for it if it's a course you're trying to sell. Your employees will jump on that program because they can see that at the end of this program, this is what I'll be able to do from the title. That's an aspect of ID. So you're already instructing them from your title. And then you now build your program in such a way that each step, so let's use the concept of an Indomie, of noodles. Somebody will write spicy noodles recipe for spicy recipes for noodles, and call that the name of their program. But if we're going by the instruction I've shared, the very first thing you have to do is change the title. Call it how to make noodles that would keep your customers licking their finger or something. Give me something creative. End goal should be the title, actually. And then as you are building the module, you build the module as tasks that they must do, not as concepts that they must learn. So instructional design, properly done, will build your modules as the tasks that they must take to achieve the end result of the title that you've given to the program. Let's use food. I want to teach people how to make spicy noodles. The very first thing that I must teach them, which should be my module 1, or should be the very first thing that they will learn, is how to identify the right noodles. You don't need to give them history of noodles, where it came from. Nah, how to identify the right noodles should be the first model. And you teach them how to do it. The second module should be how to prepare the condiments for the right noodles, especially to achieve this goal that you set as a title, spicy noodles that people will lick their fingers for after eating. Then the third module should be the preferred cooking method for that goal. You see that's how an instructional designer thinks. So you are not just creating concepts. Your modules are following a model such that without doing module 1, they will suffer in module 2. So they won't jump your course. Without doing module 2, they will suffer in module 3. Because if they learn the best cooking method and they don't even know how to identify noodles, they will cook nonsense. And then the fourth module after that could be the preparation method. So you've shown them in module 1 how to identify noodles. You've shown them in module 2 how to prepare the condiments to make the noodles. You showed them in module 3 how to identify the best cooking method. Now in module 4, you are now showing them how to make the noodles. And then module 5 can be in bonus. So that's what instructional design is. If you don't have this skill, you cannot build programs that will drive performance. You will train for 3 days and your people will not change. Because all you've done is just show up to teach. You've not actually walked them through a development phase. And then in between those modules, you are setting quizzes to reinforce what has been taught in maybe module 1. You set a 3-5 quiz, or you scenario question. Just, do you get the concept? So that's what instructional design is, and it's a competence that you must have. Then the third one is what everybody does: training and facilitation. Now, if you don't understand competence 1, if you don't have competence 1 and competence 2, your trainings and your facilitations will not drive change. They would only inspire people and motivate them, but you won't give them actionable steps, or your program won't build into them the desire to take steps to be better. So these are the keys you need to have before you even think about growing your career. So think of this as point 0 before point 1. Master these 3 things. Spend time on YouTube learning it. Spend time on Udemy. Read articles, read blogs. Just focus on these 3 things. There's a difference between training and facilitation. Facilitation is the things you do to ensure that your learners are learning. It's almost similar to instructional design. However, it is different. Facilitations are the things you now do in the training, the activities you do in class, the waters they have to, all those things. Training, on the other hand, is 3 questions. What's the difference between training, learning, and development? They are not the same thing. They are 3 different things. Learning is changed behavior in simple definition. You have only learned when you have changed behavior. So if you are still doing the same thing after a training program, you have not learned. Which is why people will go for retreats, they will do all those things, they will still come back and still do the same thing. They did not learn. They just went to have fun. So learning is changed behavior. Training is the process that facilitates learning. So if you want a broader definition for learning, learning is the acquisition of skills, the acquisition. So basically, learning is the absorption of knowledge. Yeah, I always miss that word up. Learning is the absorption of knowledge, the acquisition of skills, and the change in attitude that leads to a change behavior. That's a longer definition for learning, but learning simply is just change behavior. What knowledge do I gain today that can make me change my behavior? What skill can I learn that can make me change a behavior? What attitude do I need to imbibe that can help me change the behavior? That's learning. Training is the process that facilitates learning. So training could be an instructor-led. That's why you see there are various types of training models. There's instructor-led, which is what we are doing. Now, what we are doing is a version of instructor-led called VILT, Virtual Instructor-Led Training. So this program, everything, our sessions in the community are more like trainer sessions. They are not conceptual. They are very tactical. They are things you can take down and practice tomorrow at work. So there are various models of training. We have instructor-led that has 2 versions. ILT, which is a physical in-person session with the instructor teaching. And then VILT, which is virtual instructor-led that we had. So what we are doing is called virtual instructor-led. There's micro training. There's mobile training, training with mobile, building your training in a way that it can only work on mobile devices. The largest population in the world use phones. So all your trainings, if they don't even fit mobile devices, you have not started, really. There is micro and macro training models. There is training could also be manuals. Nobody's teaching anybody. You just created a simple manual, how-to manual that they can use. That is training. Training is mentorship, where you put somebody in front of the other person. Like, in ancient Israel and even till now, if you get a new bull and you want to make that bull work on the farm, you don't train that bull alone. You put a mentor, an older bull beside the younger bull. Then because the younger bull is fresh, he may want to go in another direction, but because it's connected to the older bull, the mentor, anywhere the mentor goes, because that one is used to the work, the longer bull would do that consistently. And if they do it for 3 weeks, that is learning reinforcement. So the older bull, by default, is reinforcing that learning process. And if you understand NLP very well and neuroplasticity and how the brain works with pathways, if you do something consistently for a certain way over a period of time, your brain creates a pathway such that by default it becomes an unconscious competence. So that's how you train a new bull to work on the farm. That is also that's learning and development. So life is learning and development, guys. You can see that I've brought examples from everyday living, right? So training is the process that facilitates learning. Anything you will do, if you have to dance for them to get it, dance, that's training. So it's beyond, I'm going to gather people in a class and talk. No, training could be an how-to manual, training could be a mentorship system. I am of the opinion that coaching is not training. Coaching is more of a leadership methodology than a training methodology. Because in coaching, what you're really doing is asking questions. Coaching is, if you're a good coach, you analyze better anyway. So coaching helps you to ask better questions so that you can help them unearth the desire and the strengths and sometimes the solution to the problems they have. So it's not really a training methodology. It's more of a leadership methodology. And so you can if and the more your arsenal grows with training methodology, the better you can deliver change. Because what people really want is change. They don't care if you went to the moon and back to make the training happen. Do my people change? If the answer is yes, and you would always be remembered. So that's point zero. God, see me when I say 15 minutes. I don't 45 minutes. I've used more than 45 minutes. So the very first thing you need to do, and what I've been saying in the past has flowed into this, the very first way to grow your career is to develop technical depth. If there's anything I pride myself in, is the fact that I always think of myself as an iceberg. What you think you know about me on this job or in my work is very little compared to what I know. And it is the reason why my career has grown really fast. I mean, I would share the other secrets in the other parts. But I started up my career, I was studying mathematics in FUTA. And the roadmap for me after school was to do master's, PhD, and then become a lecturer, a professor. That's the best you can do in mathematics if you want to go through that career path in our country. Out of the country, man, you can be working in NASA, you can work in Israel and make bombs, you can be part of the team that creates a new kind of bomb, you can calculate projectiles and design a new weapon that if they shoot here, it can turn around the corner 55 times before it kills somebody. Mathematics can do all of that outside of Nigeria. But in Nigeria, the pathway was to become a teacher. Guys, I left school with a 2.2, a very low 2.2. And I knew that there's no way I can become a professor anymore. And so I was on IT and it dawned on me that, guy, there's nothing you can really do about this, your degree anymore. Find your ikigai, your reason for being. And if you Google my name, actually, there are two things that will pop up when you Google my name. Google's first page, second page. Style and learning and development. Right? And I figured out that these are two things I can do very well. I can talk, I can teach, I can train, I can impact knowledge. I'm passionate about it. I love it. How can I get people to pay me for it? And how can I do it in such a way that the world will desire it from me? And so I decided that when I go back to school my 5th year, because FUTA is 5 years, anything you're reading. I go back to school my 5th year, and from day one in school, I started hosting sessions, especially with I attended the fellowship. So everybody in my fellowship, I was doing for my department, doing for ushering, doing for choir, doing for every department. What was I teaching them? Simple soft skills, how to survive life after school, how to write a CV, how to present yourself, how to answer interview questions. That was what I was doing for 1 year. So from school, I'd already built capacity to teach and train so that my classes can be very exciting, right? And then leaving school, there was a period of staying at home because I did not want to do what was not training. And then I had an opportunity to work with one of the biggest names in the corporate training market. is the king of sales. I don't need to mention his name, but if you're looking for the king of sales out of Africa, is that guy. And I interned with him for 6 months. And then he introduced me to corporate training and understanding what corporates want. And so I furthermore deepened my skill in that. And by the time I was leaving him, I moved to work with one of the brightest names in project management and brand marketing. And I also developed technical depth in that area. And then after working with those people, I moved to work. So in my first 5 years after school, I chose the bosses I worked for. I worked for human beings and not organizations. Because my goal was to develop capacity. If I worked with organizations, I would have drowned in it, especially if I had a terrible manager. So I worked with people that I had access to every day and I could see the impact they were making generally. But along all these lines, I joined their organizations to handle the L&D or training function. So when I worked with the brand and marketing agency, I was handling their corporate trainings on brand and marketing for organizations. And when I worked with the biggest name in marketing, usually I'm very happy to drop her name because she's one of my best bosses so far. I worked with Trisha Bees as a programs manager for a tech. She built an ed tech then called Business Lab Africa, and so she hired me to work as the programs manager. So I furthermore had to think of how do I create programs in this academy that can help small businesses grow. And so I also grew depth in marketing, communications, consulting language, because we're doing a lot of consultings and all of that. Why am I saying all of this? 5 years working with these three people made me ready to take a director role in an edtech. Because as soon as I left working for them, I became academic director at UTIVA. And I built out most of the curriculums, built out the learning management system. But I couldn't do all of that because when I was working with Trisha Bees, I had to learn how to build a learning portal. I sat down with a developer, we had to Google it, and then I had to direct him on how this is what modules should look like. This is what the feature for assessment should look like. So when I got on a job where it was needed, I did it in I think it was in 2 weeks without breaking a sweat. Some of my teammates are on the call at work currently. We just built a new portal in less than 3 days. Ease. No code tools, we can make it happen, right? But I can do all of this now because I have technical depth. There is nothing you want to build in learning and development that I cannot give you, so that I cannot give you a contribution that is worthy of you paying me money for. So it's the very first thing you have to focus on. Let me tell you for free, forget trying to work for Paystack or for all these guys at the moment. Because if you don't have capacity and you get there, you just be one of the very few people that cannot make an impact. Focus on volunteering for jobs that will stretch you. You see somebody is running an NGO for young people. Volunteer to be the training manager there and practice the skills that you are learning, possibly from our community. Oh, I've just learned instructional design. This is a place for me to practice it. I cannot count the amount of free gigs I did, and I still do. There are opportunities I jump on. I reach out to people and say, oh, I like what you're building. Can I be part of it? Without asking for a dime, because that person is operating in an industry that I've not played in yet. So let me go and carry what I have learned and deploy in that industry if it will work. And if it will work, there's another feather on my shoulder. Because when I get into that industry, I will not stutter. So you can only build technical depth by doing. You don't build technical depth by watching. You have to do. You have to look for opportunities where you can volunteer your skill. Right? And I tell people this, don't just focus on online learning. Online learning is a support to in-person learning because there are certain things that you cannot teach online. You can't teach people how to sew online. They need to be on a machine. So you have to understand what's the difference between a workshop model of training, what's the difference between a virtual instructor-led model of training, what's the difference between don't let me use the big word, synchronous and asynchronous. What's the difference between a video-based format of learning? What are the advantages? What are the pros? What are the cons? That's technical depth. Can I sit in front of a team of 5 and still build a solution for them, and sit in front of a team of 100 and still build another solution for them? That's technical depth. So it's the very first way you can grow your career. Technical depth. Or else, you will not be an iceberg. You'll just be a floating ice that if somebody steps on, they will drown. We've seen those movies where they think the ground is ice until they step on it and then they just enter. The iceberg was what broke the biggest ship in the world as of that time, the Titanic, an iceberg. So become so strong that no matter the industry you are thrown into, you have solutions. So that's the first way. The second way is to tell your story. And I intentionally put this second, not last, because we usually feel like we have to have done something before we tell our story. I suffered this. I feel like if I told my story earlier, I possibly would have not been where I am today. I possibly been in Annapolis, possibly bigger. I didn't start telling my story. So everybody's different. When I left school in the early 20s, I set a 5-year goal. The first 5-year goal was to grow technical depth. To be my goal was to be so good that if I sit in front of any interviewer, them not hiring me will be because of the money I'm asking for, not because I'm not qualified for the job. That was my first 5-year plan after school. It wasn't even to get a big job. It was to look for opportunities to grow. My next 5-year after that 5-year was to work in an organization where I will be at the head of affairs. I tell you, because of the first 5 years, I achieved that in year 1 of that goal. So I left school in 2015. I had my first 5-year from 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? So by 2020, I had completed my first 5-year goal. By the first year in my next 5-year goal, I was already academic director at UTIVA because of the first 5 years, technical depth. Now, it was then I decided to start telling my story because I had things to tell. I had projects I'd worked on. I had things I'd volunteered for. But me, I'm telling you now, please start telling your story now. If you are learning instructional design, go on LinkedIn and start writing about it. And say, I've been studying instructional design in recent times, and there are 2 models that have really caught my attention, model this and model that. What do you guys think? And then people can share their thoughts. Keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. Share your story. You do something at work, talk about it. Although talk about it in a way that you are not sharing trade secrets. If you go through my LinkedIn page, I'm always talking about work. I'm like an unofficial brand ambassador for my company. It's because if I don't tell my story, people that are watching me will not know what I can do. The day I say, I have left this company. When I was leaving UTIVA in the final quarter of, because it was a project, so it was 6 months. It was 9 months, I think, yeah. I had 3 offers 2 weeks or 3 weeks after I announced on LinkedIn that I was leaving UTIVA. One of the things I did at UTIVA was to consistently document my process. If I'm doing a session, it's recorded. People can see it online. If you go through my old post, you see. So when I was leaving, people were sort of waiting for me to leave because when I left, I had offers. I had to tell everybody, see, I need one month to rest because I did like 6 years in 9 months there. And then I picked 2 of the offers. One was a consulting gig, the other one was a full-time role. And I did that for a while, and then my current job came. So we need to understand that if you don't tell your story, nobody knows what you're doing. And if nobody knows what you're doing, you're going to struggle to grow your career. It's the simple truth. You are invited to do a training session. Carry somebody to record the session for you. Sometimes I wonder, is it because we feel like it will be weird or I'll be see, if you don't advertise yourself, nobody. There's this story I teach in my personal branding or executive presence classes, and I say that the reason why the lion is the king of the jungle is because the lion advertises. It's not the strongest, it's not the most beautiful, but you see that mane around its head, it carries it like a crown. And then you see the lion depict and give you attitudes of kings. They don't hunt, they sleep. They are one of the laziest creatures you can come across. They sleep all day. They tell the world who they are. But the biggest mistake any creature can make is to attack the pride. And then you will see the lion. So you see the peacock is more beautiful than the lion, but it doesn't have the roar of the lion. So when the lion roars, everybody shakes. That's advertisement. I don't arrive. Na me dey here. Na me get this space. That's why he's the king of the jungle. Are you advertising? Are you talking about your work? If you don't tell your story, people will not know you exist. All right. The final point, which is the third, so that's the second way. The third way is now to build relevant connections. So if you don't have technical depth, you can't tell better stories. If you don't tell better stories, people can't connect with you. So I see where every person I have met wants to jump to step 3. They want to connect with an HR person. They want to connect with this person. They want to connect with that person. But then the person struggles and brings you into an interview. And then you can't even answer questions. They're asking you, how will you drive performance of the customer support team that has not delivered KPI in 3 months? And your answer is, we'll build some training programs. You don't fail. So don't struggle to build connections while you don't have depth. So focus on building depth. But me, I will tell you that you can do the 3. Try and do the 3, but the one you should be focused on is building depth and telling stories. By the time you are telling stories, I bet you people will start coming. See, I've gotten more speaking engagements this year than I have had in the last 8 to 7 years combined. I've spoken every month. This week, I've been speaking since, okay, I'm speaking today. I'm speaking today. Tomorrow, I'm speaking. Next tomorrow, I'm speaking. On Sunday, I'm speaking. December 2, like that. But invitations will not come if they've not seen me tell my story and if they've not seen me demonstrate technical depth. Because another thing is, you can tell your story so well. You can tell your story so well. Emmanuel, I saw your connection request. Nice. I will respond later. You can tell your story so well, and then you meet connections, and then there's no depth. So the 3 of them are important. The 3 of them are vital, but the most important is depth. You need to know your onions. You need to be the guy. Everybody I've worked with in the last 8 years, if you ask them about Gabriel Balogun, there are 2 things they'll tell you. Maybe 3 things. I am very passionate, I know my stuff, and I can talk a lot. But I'm working on it. The talk a lot part is before I found out to now turn it into a skill. So now I've mastered how to not talk a lot, but how to say a lot in few words. But primarily 2 things. They'll say, maybe the 4th one will be how I dresses well. He's a style person. He's a personal brand person. But 2 things people that I've worked with will tell you I'm very passionate about work. I love people that know how to figure things out. If you can figure things out, I know that I can teach you anything. So when I'm hiring people, that's what I look out for. Show me what you have figured out on your own. I'm self-taught. I didn't go to, I've not done a doctorate degree in education. I don't have any educational degree. Maybe the closest I have is an SHROM and maybe something I did with ATD, Association for Talent Development. But even that was personal effectiveness. So I don't have like an L&D certification. But I can stand in front of any organization in the world and speak. Because certifications are just, in quotes, fancy papers that can open doors for you. But if there's no depth, You will struggle. And then why chase certain certifications if you cannot even contribute in the class? Because if you don't know so well and you go and do an L&D certification, how are you going to practice what you've learned? How are you going to create examples in your head when you're learning? Because for behavior to change, you have to associate. For adults, you have to associate. Adults learn by relating things. So many of the things that will make sense to you today, because you can relate them with what you're currently going through. So if you're doing something extremely new and you don't have any precedence, you will struggle because you can't relate, you can't connect. So it's connection that makes you change behavior. If I am poor at public speaking and then somebody teaches me a public speaking class and I can connect my struggle with his solution, behavior will change immediately. But if I can't do that, right? So it's not certification, guys. It's not certifications, it's not sitting in training programs, it's none of that. It is technical depth, telling your story, and building relevant connections. Relevant connections. There are connections I have paid to be part of. This is the year I have paid. The money I've spent on building connections is even scary for me myself. I've never spent such money in my life. Just because I want to be part of somebody's community and I want to connect with the founder, I will pay to be part of that community. I will pay to take the course so that I can show up in the class and shake the guy's hand. And while I'm shaking his hand, I'm telling him about what he's currently doing, my observation in the class, and things he can do better in the next class. I've left an impression. But I did not have that opportunity to build that relevant connection if I did not pay money to be part of it. Thank God for Progressives, it's free. So many people can connect with me without having to spend a dime. I did not have that when I started. So the community is bigger than just gathering a bunch of people together. This is the next phase of my mission, of my 5 years. So I'm in my 7th year in my 10-year plan, which is to, and weirdly enough, my 5-year plan after 2015 is to become a king in the L&D category. It's as simple as that, really. The first 5 years after school was to build technical depth that by the 6th year, I would have a job where I'm in charge of the runnings and the operation of academics in that institution. And it happened with Utiva Analytics Intelligence in that 2021. Now, from 2021, I made a new goal, which was to tell my story and become a king in the L&D category, which is slowly happening. You can see it. Most people didn't know I existed in 2022, but 2023. But I didn't start in 2023. I started in 2021. I started talking about it in 2021. But it took 3 years for people to catch up. By my 10th year, and so Progressives is part of the plan to share my knowledge, because the whole essence of thought leadership is sharing your knowledge with people so that they can take it and run with it, and then you become a reference point. Right? So I believe that everybody in this community has a lot to give the world. And I know that we will keep learning and then keep practicing. I'm not sure there's anything I've shared today that we cannot practice. Hopefully, as the session goes on and as the team advises, we may do sessions on how to build your LinkedIn profile, sessions on how to, I have some training videos on instructional design, but I can do more. But most of our sessions will be train the trainer sessions so that you can live with actionable steps that you can practice. This brings me to the end of today's session. See me that said I won't talk for 5 minutes. I had to compress. God help me. Please, questions. If you have questions, like we're going to spend like the next 15, 20 minutes answering questions. Please, if you have questions, now would be a very good time to ask. Please, I'm really pleading. because this is the favorite part of any training session. And two things happen when I'm done training. People don't ask questions either because I have said a lot and they are full and their brain can't process the questions to ask at the moment, or I have answered every other question that they have prepared before coming to class. So it's usually one of the two. But please, you guys should break the jinx. Please ask questions. Any questions?
Yes,
All
I
right.
would like to ask a question.
All right. Let's have Adeswa and then we have Abiodun. But you can
Yes,
just raise your hand so that I can also just call you after both of them. All right, Adeswa, let's hear you.
yes, you talked about instructional design and learner design. And I would like to ask, how do you build a program that differentiates between the two or using the two methods?
Yes, so there are some methods that focus solely on instructional. So there are some instructional design methods that focus solely on building the program for the sake of the instructor. One of those many models is what we call ADI. I'm sorry to say it's one of the least boring ID methodologies in the world because it's so slow and it just doesn't, it's not agile, right? However, there are two methodologies that serve both instructors and learners. So with those methodologies, you have satisfying both instructional design and learning design. And those were the two methodologies I called, and that was the example I gave. You saw that with the example I gave about making noodles, the learners will learn, but you are also helping the instructors create content in the way that makes the learners learn, right? So, Valentine, you can, okay, maybe I should write it. It's called GAGNIS, GAGNIS 9 levels of instruction. And then there's also Merrill's first principles of instruction. Please, if you're very big on growing your instructional design competence, those are two things you should study. Please, like there's one other favorite one I have called backward design. So backward design is like reverse engineering. You have the, maybe I should add it, backward design. No, start with these two. You can always do the others. So backward design is knowing what you want to achieve and then reverse engineer the process that creates it. But it's very easy. You can use that for little programs, not for full-scale organizational development. All right. Adeswa, does that
Thank you
answer your
very
question?
much. Yes, it
Yes, you're
does. Thank
welcome.
you so much.
All right, Abiodun.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you so much for this class. It's been very, very impactful. It's been very, very impactful. Thank you so much. All right,
You're
my
welcome.
question is very simple. So I have a goal of using this coming year to really work on the things you've talked about. So I currently pastor a church, and I'm looking at how to infuse all of these things you've spoken about. So to actually like work on some, so how we can actually infuse some of these things to actually grow the church, grow my people at the same time while I'm learning at the same time. So that's just what I want to ask, how we can actually use
Okay.
this to actually still train the people, grow the people, and
Okay.
at the same time work on myself at the same time.
Okay. So every organization, whether it's a spiritual organization or a profit organization or a non-profit organization, need three things to survive. Yeah, three things. It needs a leader, which in the case of a church is a pastor, right? In the case of a company is a CEO. It needs the workforce, which is usually the service team in the church, that workforce. And then it needs funds. So for profits, they make the money, they make the funds by themselves by selling the product. For non-profits, they look for people that will sponsor them. For churches, pretty much the same thing because it's non-profits, right? So when you are building your team, in your workforce at church, you need to think of them from an hierarchy. Oh, what's the word? You need to think of them from a structured perspective. So in
Okay.
organizations, you have the executives, you have the directors, you have the line managers, and then you have the guys on the floor. Same thing with your service team. You have the service team members, you have
Okay.
the team leads, right? Then you have your pastors. So your pastors are like the VPs, the executives, and the likes in a
Okay.
profit organization. The team leads, the guys that is in charge of evangelism, in charge of choir, those are
Yeah.
line managers. And then the service team are the guys that come to work. The only difference is that for profits, they are paid salary. For church, it's volunteer work.
Mm.
So you as the leader have to be very inspirational, very motivational, but you can also infuse this thing. So you are building like your discipleship school. You have to
Okay.
ask yourself, if I'm building my discipleship school, what are the, and for those of us that are Muslim, sorry, this can also work in you if you lead a spiritual organization. If you're building your discipleship school, your people, for change to happen, they must have the right attitude, they must get better knowledge, right?
Mm.
So they
Mm.
must know, they must have attitudes and abilities that help them do the tasks better, and they must develop the skills. So if you're building, you have to ask yourself, as a discipler, and by the manual we're using to disciple people, what are the skills disciples must have? What are the attitudes disciples must have? What are the
Mm.
knowledge disciples must know? And then you
Mm.
can, so you're already using the ACTS methodology to build your discipleship program,
Mm.
right? So everything I've said today can be used.
Mm.
While so always approach the gathering of people when there are a lot of people together. It has already become an organization, and you can use organizational development principles to grow. And you see churches that have managed this. Have you wondered how churches, for instance, like Daystar, how they keep everything in check? CCI,
Mm.
Redemption Camp. How is Redemption Camp running? You think it's just that the GO? No. So it's just people management. So you have to understand people management and people management and people development. We can have a personal session after class. I don't want to on this.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So, yeah, but right. Has gone off the call. I know wanted to ask a question. Who else? Okay, I think I see questions in the on the chat. Aisha says, personally, I have this fear of admitting that I know things in the sense that I think I know more, that I can confidently account or sell myself for. My question, considering you didn't have education or HR background, is when did you find your voice? I found my voice when I did things that helped people. So I did a training program. The participants learned from my training program. I tell them to do like a recording for me. I post. I started finding my voice. People just want solutions. And it doesn't matter whether you went to school or not even in this present time. If you can deliver, it works. There's also imposter syndrome. And see, imposter syndrome is not really bad. Imposter syndrome is proof to you that there is a lot you still need to learn on this path that you want to take. That's one part of it. Imposter syndrome also shows that you are in that space and the world recognizes that you are in that space, but you yourself are too timid to accept that you are supposed to be in that space. But the world has put you in that space. So one is a learning gap. The other one is personal self-image. Are you telling yourself, I am here, I earned it, and then doing it? Secondly, I'm very experimental, so I get lost sometimes in the sense of what I want to do, e-learning development, corporate learning. Forget about niching down now. Just master how to help people learn. In this phase of your career, if you're trying to build technical depth, master how to help people learn. In your desire to master how to help people learn, e-learning will show up. Physical trainings will show up. Methodologies will show up because you're focused on helping people learn. So when you start Googling stuff like that, you start seeing methodologies that can help people learn. That's what I did. Focus on learning how to help people learn and leave the terminologies for now. As you're learning, the terminologies will jump on you and you understand it better. because then you understand why e-learning is needed when you are teaching, because you can't train 10,000 people at once. You can't train 10,000 people in 20 countries in a physical training session. You will burn out. So you understand that the training methodology for that class cannot be physical sessions. It can be e-learning. But how are we now going to use e-learning merged with other things to ensure that we still have the desired result if it was a physical session? So that's how your brain begins to think, right? I can take only one person. I think we've stayed for too long. Let me take Timmy. Okay, I think MM has joined back. So after Timmy, we'll take MM's question and we can call it a day. Timmy.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the session. Um, let me say, I've learned a lot, and then part of things I've learned is that L&D is actually very applicable to pretty much any discipline or any industry you're in, or any position, or any role, or any career path. So the question I want to ask is this: from the experience that you shared with us, I try to do certain things like putting people together for when they show interest to learn, when they want to develop their technical depth.
Mm,
So I try to put people together, then put them on a course online. Okay, you have to do this course,
mm,
and maybe on a week interval we get to meet and then discuss some of the things that are
mm.
not clear to them. I make sure that is in line with what I do, so I can provide some practical tips. And
Okay.
but the challenge, I've done it twice, but the challenge is 90% of people who show interest at first, as along the line they just lose interest, that you have to follow them up, run after
Mm.
them, try to, and because I've done it twice, I'm losing like that.
Spirit.
Yeah, that I don't want to do. I don't feel like doing it again because it's just tiring. Like,
Yeah.
do you think I just want to put my time, and it's just me giving back and trying to encourage people not to do, certain things now? So this
Mm,
challenge, is there a way it can be addressed? Like, is it fault on my part, on the part of the
mm.
learners or the people who are showing interest to learn?
Okay,
That's my
so
question.
quick quick answer would be it is the part of the person creating the program. So there's a reason why people will go to cinemas and watch a 2-hour movie, but will struggle to watch even a 2-hour learning video on YouTube. Two things. The people that created the movie used attention grabbing strategies to catch your attention from the beginning of the movie to the end. So sometimes when we build learning programs, we just think that it is a course with videos that we put on a portal. Sometimes what your people need, depending on the learners and what you're trying to teach them, may not even be a course. It may be a membership program. And that membership program, you guys meet once every week. And that once every week you guys meet would have certain things that they must do before the class or after the class. So the problem is the instructional design, is the design of the training program. What does the course title sound like? What are the course modules made up of? What do they do when they watch the video? What do they do when they show up in class? Do they just listen or do they practice? So if I'm learning product design, for instance, I don't want to do a product design course where I'm learning about the history of product design or the methodologies that happen in product design. No, I want it that from day one, your class is already telling me that at the end of this module, I'll be able to use Figma to create a shape. So the class is task focused. You need to build modules to be task focused because task focused modules solve problems. So if there are 7 things I need to know to become, or 7 skills I need to have to become a product designer, let each module be that task. So maybe task 1 is I need to learn how to um, do research. Let me come to the class, and from the moment I'm in class, you're already telling me, maybe in the first 10 minutes, hi guys, These are the principles for doing research. Class assignment 1, go online and write a research on this, and everybody is doing it in class, and they are sharing their thoughts in Google on the chats. Nobody leaves that class feeling like I just came to class to learn. They've learned by doing, because adults learn by doing, not by listening. It's because this our program is me sharing 3 ways that I have grown my career. That's why it's called that. If I wanted to teach instructional design, I would call it something like building learning that is addictive. And on the call, we'll build a course together. Shikina, I'm not going to come and teach you instructional design concepts. I'm going to teach you the concept, one of the instructional design, and we'll build a course on the call live. And everybody goes home and go and practice what they've learned. So you have to build modules that give people the ability to practice in class. Or if it's a video, as they are watching, they have to pause and write and design, because they know if they move forward, they will not be able to do what you said. When you do that, learning becomes addictive. Learning becomes addictive, right? And then you put some other gimmicks in between, like maybe streaks, or the first 5 people to complete the program gets maybe 3,000 naira from me, or gets data subscription for 1 month. All those things need to be in your program if you're trying to build people. Like one of the gimmicks I'm putting in my community now is, as the community grows and I know that I've impacted what I need to impact in the early years, I'll start reaching out to HR professionals, because I belong in a lot of HR groups, and say, if you need an learning and development person, I have a database of people that can get jobs. So that would be my give back to the community. But you can't build anything for people, even if they pay, if they don't feel rewarded for doing what you've learned. It's just adults' behavior. We can't change that. The reason why we work is we want money. If not, we'll not work, right? So final person is MM. Let me take MM's question and we call it a day. Oh God, I have grace to speak. MM,
Hi. Hi, well done. Thank you for this. Sorry, I was thrown out so many times. I'm using my phone. I think I wanted to refer to the 3 things you put up. I think the first thing you put there was needs, I think needs analysis or something. There were like the 3, yeah.
yeah,
I think
needs
I was
slash
thrown out
gap
of that.
analysis. Okay.
Basically, yeah, for L&D career growth. Yeah, so
Yes.
for this, what are you talking about? Are you looking at them as individual aspects, which is how we look at them, or are you looking at them as a progression?
Oh
These
no, so
3.
individual aspects. It's not a
Okay, okay, okay.
progression.
Okay, that's
You need
fine.
to
All
have
right.
all 3 to try. So the difference between competent people
Yeah,
and skilled people is
yeah,
in the ACTS methodology. So competence is the combination of somebody's competent for the job if
yeah.
they have the right attitude for the job, they know
Okay.
what the job entails, and they have the skill for the job. That's what makes them competent. But
Mm-hmm.
somebody can be skilled for the job and not be competent for the job.
Yes,
So you can be a skilled trainer, but you can't have an L&D role because all you know is training. So you have the training skill, but you don't have the knowledge for a learning and development professional.
okay, that's perfect. That's fine.
Do you understand? So
Okay.
so this is like your axe, because there are competencies that you must have. And when it comes to
Yeah,
need and gap analysis, by the time you start studying, you will see that there are certain attitudes you need to have to do the right analysis. There are certain
exactly.
skills you need to have to do the right analysis. There are certain knowledge you need to have to do the right analysis. There are certain
Yeah.
skills you need to have as an instructional designer. There's certain knowledge you
Mm-hmm.
need to have as an instructor. So Axe is
Design.
everywhere. Like
Yeah.
it's because that's what makes you a competent need analysis L&D professional. Makes you a
Yes. Yes.
competent instructional designer. Makes you a competent training and facilitator.
Fantastic.
So chase
That makes sense.
competence, not just skill, which is why I have a big problem with skill and skill, upskilling.
Yeah.
Well, it's good, sure, but it doesn't make you can upskill somebody and it's still not competent. And then
Exactly.
skill
To
is in
build
2
my
parts. There's
competence. Yeah.
upskilling, there's reskilling. Upskilling
Yeah.
is you are a speaker, and then you are learning how to
And you
design
want to know this.
slides.
Exactly.
That's
Okay.
upskilling.
That's fine.
So
Mhm.
upskilling is learning skills that will make you relevant on the job.
Yeah.
Reskilling is that you're a public speaker, but now you are learning how to drive a bike. So you are being reskilled from being a speaker to being a bike rider.
To do
So
other things. All
sometimes,
right.
if you understand the gap, you will know that what this person needs is a reskill and not an upskill. But I mean, we'll
Okay.
do sessions where we'll dive into all of that really. But Don't worry,
Perfect.
there's a lot more to do. Thank
Thanks.
you, everybody, for staying through till the end of the call. I am sure that this has been impactful. One of the very things that we'll be doing after our sessions is, if you are in the community, you can just write what you learned and how the session was and what you think we can do better. I mean, subsequently, we would run polls on what to talk about and have sessions. Some of us on this in this group in the community will also hold sessions, so I'm not the only one that will be speaking. There are certain people in the community that are skilled in certain other things that somebody can come and teach how to do better design. I know I design slides really, but weirdly, I don't know how to teach people how to design slides. I've tried teaching people, I can't, but I do it excellently well. So I do it for people, but I can't now say, let me host the class and teach people. So there are people that design, because I didn't learn graphic design the way people learn graphic design, right? So anyways, so there are people that are good communication experts that can teach in the community how to speak and communicate well. So we are going to have sessions. We have a leadership development expert on the call, Yomi. Yomi can also teach how to speak to leaders, how to get into the mind of managers, so that you can build the way they think. I mean, there's a whole lot that will come on. So if you're on the call for the first time and you're not part of the community yet, please become a part of us. You can visit the link bit.ly/join progressios. You will fill a form. The team will look through the form. We don't just accept any and everybody. Like, we need to be sure that this community is for you. That's why we're very small as a start. We don't have 1,000 people. Everybody here was selectively handpicked. And over the year, months, we would also reshuffle. If we see that this person is a community and they don't contribute or do anything, they'll be taken out for more people to come in, right? So we are very interested in high numbers, but we want to have quality people so that when those job opportunities start coming, people can pick it up and get employed because they are competent already. On this note, thank you everyone for staying through to the end of the call. My DM is open. You can always slide in to ask questions, share business opportunities with me, build programs with me. One thing we'll also try to do is, if you are building a program, you can bring it if it's allowed, you can bring it to the community and we can put minds together to build it with you. So just solidarity, camaraderie, and all of those things is what the community, everybody is here to help everybody become good. So the link again is bit.ly/joinprogressios.com. Thank you, everyone. Please drop your comments in the chat. Things like, oh, today's session was beautiful, so that people that didn't show up will look forward to the recording. Please, it's our community. Let's grow it together. I'm just the figurehead. Everybody here is growing it together. All right, guys. Have a beautiful night. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was a great section. Thank you. Should I
Thank
still wait
you.
behind
Thank
for
you. Thank you so
the
much. I
section?
really enjoyed myself. This was really good.
Right. Nice. Biodu, let's talk in the DMs. Let's talk in the DMs.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you so much.